Well, it's hoop season, Bear. Forget football season now. This is basketball now.
But your Lions beat the Packers.
How about that?
Wow.
Just like we predicted last week
I saw Facebook
again.
with your cheesy Lions jersey on. Wow.
I reuse that picture once a year, the one time when they actually win a game.
Okay, all right. Well, we can get into that too, but that ship may be sinking.
Yeah. Finally, time to press the panic button.
I think so. Yep.
The high school girls basketball season got started Tuesday night, probably, as you watch this in the past. We are shooting this Tuesday, so we're getting ready to go out to some games. We'll get you a little preview there. And I got to see the Badgers Sunday night up close and personal, so a real riveting game against Siena on the basketball floor. But we could talk about a bit of a debacle there as well, and that season getting underway.
Leathernecks.
And all that and more coming up on this episode of Extra Points. Greetings again, everyone. This is John Barry here.
Hola.
Sports writer for the Gazette. I'm sports editor Eric Schmoltz, and we sit down usually every week to talk local and state sports. And it's our weekly sports show.
It is.
We're about a year and a half into this thing almost now.
We are.
This is really becoming a bona fide show, I think.
The high school football season wrapping up this week, and I've got 5 of my 7 state champions still alive, so feel pretty good about that.
I would tell all of our listeners that you should bet against all 5.
Yes,
probably,
exactly.
Because we just haven't really been.
Although I don't think you can bet against Kimberly, but the other 4, they could all lose. But Kimberly, Waukesha Catholic Memorial, Lodi, Darlington, and Amherst are the 5 teams still left playing for a state title, and I did have those 5 winning state titles.
I mean, you picked all chalk, so you got to stipulate that.
Yeah,
you didn't really go on any limbs.
Catholic Memorial was not a 1 seed; they're probably the only ones, but
probably should have been. Based on how
in
they
Division
play.
1.
No area teams playing in those games, but
Nope.
you can. But you're going to be on the radio this week.
Going to be on 100.5 ESPN out of Madison, doing the Division 5 and 6 state title games at Camp Randall at 1 o'clock and 4 o'clock. If you're bored, tune us in. Former 1310 personality Josh Goldberg will be doing the play-by-play, and I'll be adding some color to the whole shenanigans.
A lot of color.
Tune in.
Probably.
There'll be 9 people listening, so tune in.
Football season for us, though, is over, and now it's basketball season.
It is.
The boys started practice this week, and the girls start their games. We had our previews in. We had them in Tuesday's paper. For the girls, and I guess we can go through and talk about that a little bit. We'll start right here in town in the Big 8 in Janesville Craig and Janesville Parker. The Cougars coming off a season where they tied for the Big 8 Conference Championship, and really they were 7 decent minutes of basketball away from going to state for the first time and just couldn't quite finish it off. And Parker, I believe, was 5th,
the middle of the pack.
Yeah,
about where we thought they'd be.
They were. And I think at least going into this season for me, I expect them both to be in the upper half of that Big 10 or Big 8 standings again.
And I think when you look at the Cougars, the first thing that comes to mind is how do you replace an Al Hughes? And as good as Al was, 2-time player of the year in the Big 8 and certainly well-deserving, I think a lot of times when you lose that good player, there may have been times last year where Craig relied too much on her. And I think by, maybe having a little bit more depth this year, led by Delaney Schanenberger and some other kids they got coming back, maybe they won't have to be so dependent on one player. And Schoenberger, certainly, it starts with her. She's a senior and a all Big 8 performer last year. But First team. But, I look at Annie Schumacher. They're getting the Pearson girl back
Sam
from
Pearson,
the ACL.
And her sister Emily.
Cam Brittingham, I know, is a girl that Carrie really is high on in her post play. And Allie Carlson. I mean, just a pretty good mix of kids that I know Carrie feels like they've got some depth. And I think this year people are going to find out with that extra 4 minutes of playing time, depth is going to become a pretty important thing.
Yep. If you go out to games, you're going to be weirded out a little bit by the clock because they're playing 2 18-minute halves now instead of 4 8-minute quarters.
8-minute quarters, yep.
So things will be a little bit different there, and we'll see. It'll probably be something we have to watch in maybe 3 or 4 weeks from now. You and I can kind of break down if we've seen a whole lot of differences or what it's really meant for the game.
And I think the coaches will probably be the first ones to really, be able to tell difference, especially those that have been doing this for a long time. They know what it's like. They know what it's, kind of that rotation they want to go with. And this year, you may have to go 1 or 2 players deeper than you normally would just because kids are going to run out of gas.
Yep. And I think Kerry Starbuck agreed with you that, there were probably times last year where people kind of just stepped aside and let Al do her thing. And I think you will see a little more a pep in their step and some motivation to really get going. Schumacher, she can really shoot the ball.
Yeah,
and I think Pearson coming off a knee injury, but she's shown that she can really drive to the rim. So they have some different weapons. Schonenberger does it all, and it starts defensively with her as well.
Yeah, one of the best defenders, lockdown defenders in the area.
I think they have all the pieces. Verona seems to be the favorite,
Verona's
I would
big.
say. You've got 3
Really
6-footers.
Yep.
That's really going to test teams no matter who you are.
And one of them's a point guard.
And Middleton's coming off going to state last year, but then I think Craig and Parker are pretty much right in that mix there.
Well, and I think Parker, obviously, it begins Tuesday night. The Jenna Hartwig, Julia Hartwig era begins at Parker, and a good opening test for the Vikings. A Walworth Bigfoot team that's one of the favorites in the Rock Valley South to contend for a title, and a team that's got all 5 starters back. And for Parker, obviously, Bree Porter, the only real starter coming back for Jenna, but.
There's 2.
Foster, Caitlin Foster as well.
She played a lot of minutes.
She played a lot.
Yeah.
And, let's face it, Julia Hartwig, everyone's been talking about her for the last couple of years, and that, she could be a difference maker. And
when you step in at 6 foot tall as a freshman, you're going to open
she's
some
played
eyes.
a lot of national tournaments, and all indications are she's the real deal. But again,
you don't know till you really get in there and play.
And she's not going to be able to do it all, because if that happens, teams are going to, they're going to use a diamond and 1 or a box and 1 on her and make somebody else beat them. So I think for Parker, it's finding that 8-9 player rotation that you're going to need because of the extra minutes and finding some scoring. And if Julia's shut down, can a Bree Porter step up, or a Cam Blazer, who's from all indications a very improved player that's gotten a lot bigger and stronger, and they're going to need her down low as well. So I think for Parker, I think once the hangover, so to speak, ends with Tom Clawwater not being back, I think you'll see a Viking team that plays hard and gets better as the year goes on, and maybe a team that come tournament time you don't want to play.
Well, and especially because of the way the schedule sets up for them. They've got like 3 home games until like the middle of January or something.
And they get Verona, Middleton, and Craig in their first 4 games.
Right. So they're going to be tested early on.
Yeah,
they
exactly.
They might not have a whole lot of W's racked up, but by the time the second half of the season rolls around and maybe they're clicking a little bit, all of a sudden you're home for most of that second half of the season. And even so, Jenna Hartwig has said that she likes the chemistry of this group. Mm-hmm. They played together all summer, so it's well, they are going to have to maybe sort out some roles a little bit and who's exactly the go-to in certain situations. By all indications, they do have some great chemistry going into the year.
And let's face it, Parker hasn't been to state. Well, the last center they had was Becky Smith, who played at Northern Illinois, and I believe that was 2006 or 2005, something like that. But this is really, with Julia Hartwig, the first post presence Parker's had in probably the last 10 years. And again, you hate to put too much pressure on a freshman, because let's face it, Jenna was as good as there was as a freshman. Misty Bass certainly was well known, and Julia kind of fits into that same mold where she's been compared to Misty and she's been compared to her mother, and probably not fair.
That's pretty dangerous road to go down.
You're talking about 2 of the best players in state history. So
I would prefer to let players develop into their own identity.
I would agree. And she's going to be a different player. I mean, Jenna was just a freaky athlete that excelled, and Misty was just, certainly probably one of the top 5 players in state history. So, I mean, don't put that pressure on her yet. Let her get her feet wet, and let's see what happens. And again, this is Jenna's first year, and, it's tough to come in that first year and really make a mark right away.
I talked with Jenna about this too. I really think Julia playing varsity volleyball all year actually really helps too, because it's a different game, but you see what it takes to practice every day at a varsity level, and to just some of the oh my goodness wears off.
Yeah,
a
the moments,
bit.
and I think more than anything, you see the athletes. It helps to see those athletes that I mean, some volleyball players are specialized in just volleyball, but there's still enough 3-sport, 2-sport athletes out there that you get to see the type of athlete that you'll see on a regular basis, during the basketball season. And I think you're right. I think that competition and just stepping up a level. I think it'll make that transition from, let's face it, 8th grade where you're dominating to freshman where there's going to be nights where you're not going to be the best player on the court. And for some people, that's tough to make that gap and to close that gap a little bit.
You did a good job of previewing kind of the area basketball scene, and it really kind of revolves around the Rock Valley.
It does.
As you noted there, for the last 5 years, there's been a Rock Valley team at the girls' state basketball tournament,
right,
which is pretty impressive.
Yeah, it is.
Most recently, Whitewater last year, and they're coming off a state title, and they have a Division I athlete on their team, which you don't maybe see at that division very often.
No.
So I think it starts with Mariama Smith-Traore and
Sarah Schumacher, Rebecca Schumacher,
yeah.
And in talking to Judy Harms, who was the Wisconsin basketball coach's, the coach of the year, and that speaks pretty highly of her because that's not given in every division. That's overall. So Judy welcomes back a team with 2 starters. Anytime you put a 6'2" girl in the middle, that's as good as Mariama Smith-Traore is. I mean, that's a good place to start. And I think Rebecca Schumacher starting all of last year and kind of running the point for them, to have her back certainly helps. But, Mike Schmidt from Edgerton said, the difference this year when playing Whitewater is you only got to defend 1 post, where last year you had to worry about Sarah Schumacher. Now this year you can kind of just worry about Smith-Traore and hopefully, at least keep her limited so that, the other kids can't hurt you like she can. And I think Edgerton, with all 5 starters back, is going to be a quality team. McFarland's big. This is all the Rock Valley North. And Jefferson with a new coach, but some good athletes. So it's still Whitewater's, title to lose, but I don't think it's going to be a cakewalk like it was last season.
Edgerton kind of came along as the season went along. They got a nice postseason win, got a playoff win, so that they should have some momentum coming into this year.
Yep.
How about in the South? Bigfoot, you think?
I think the South is. I think every team, maybe outside of Palmyra and Parkview. I mean, it's kind of like football. You look at Bigfoot's got all their starters back. Broadhead Judah's got arguably the best player in the conference, and Kylie Moe. And Amber Pickle's back, and then you look at Bigfoot with the Courier sisters, and Clinton's got all their starters back. Mike Schmidt,
Turner's got the top scorer, and Ashley Himmelman's coming back.
So it really, Mike talked about it. He said, all those teams were young last year, and all those kids are back, and they're a year bigger, and they're a year stronger, and have played in the off season and are better. And he said every road game. And let's face it, there's some cupcake games in the road, and like any conference. But he said you better lace them up every night because it's going to be a dogfight in the Rock this year. And I think not because teams are average, but because teams are pretty good, and it's going to be one of the better conferences, I would think, talent-wise in our area.
It kind of goes against how it was in football. No
Yeah.
offense to these Rock Valley teams,
Nope.
but I think the coaches would even tell you that both sides.
It was a down year.
Both sides of the fence. It was a down year for
Yep.
the Rock Valley, and on the basketball side, at least in girls, and I would say in boys, we'll get to more of that after
next week.
Thanksgiving.
Yep.
But
Mhm.
a lot of these teams have a lot of pieces coming back from last year, both girls and boys. So
Yep.
it's going to be fun to watch these races.
I would agree.
Develop.
Yep.
How about outside of the Rock?
Melton, first-year coach Stacy Skemp, and a pretty young Red Hawk team. Bailey Collins, the post player, got some all-conference recognition last year. Really the only, I guess, all-conference selection returning for the Red Hawks. So they're going to be young and some new kids in that starting lineup. But Stacy was impressed with how they've looked the first week, said that, like you had talked about with Parker, the chemistry's good. Kids have kind of bought into what she expects, and that's going to kind of what you had when she was an assistant as Craig. They want to get up and down the court, play good man-to-man defense, and get after teams. And again, she said that depth is going to be important for the Red Hawks because they plan to run and make it a 90-foot game, and you got to have some depth to do that with the extra minutes.
And then in the Lakes, within our Gazette area, 2 new coaches at Elkhorn and Delavan Darien.
Yep.
But you think Badger maybe can?
Yeah, I think Badger is probably. I think it was Union Grove that was a defending conference champ, but Badger with 3 starters back, including 2 that were all conference selections a year ago. The Badgers, I would think, could compete for a conference title. Delavan and Elkhorn, it's hard to say. I mean, Todd Froworth comes over from McWanago, where he took the Indians to the state tournament a couple of times, I think, when he was there. Once they beat Craig, and I think another year they had beaten Parker to either get to state or to get to the sectional finals. So he brings some good coaching experience with him. And then Delavan, we'll see what happens with the Comets.
It's kind of just been tough sledding there because they've got certain programs that are working, but when you don't have everything kind of at full bore, and you're the smallest school in the conference, things just don't really work out for you. So that's the trick, is to try to develop some sort of program there.
And it starts with a youth program, and it starts with getting kids, 5th, 6th, 7th grade to start playing and start playing a lot. And, that's what happened with the soccer program and
softball. There's some good programs over there, but you got to get them entrenched and
rolling. That can begin to happen where they're getting the girls to play at a younger age, and that carries over into the high school level.
Sounds good. Like we said, we won't be here next week because we're going to be off and thankful for things like everyone else is. But the boys, because of Thanksgiving, the boys' season doesn't quite get rolling like the girls' season does this week. So
pretty much after Thanksgiving.
It'll still be very timely. We'll talk boys basketball here in a couple of weeks when we're back with you. But we better get to the Packers debacle.
Oh, boy. Man. Well,
to me, it was like, I said it. I was at a 7-3 game in Denver a couple of years ago where there were 17 punts. But outside of that game, I can't imagine. I can't remember a game that I watched where I would just wish I had that 4 hours of my life back.
Well, and again, I mean, you and I are not Packer haters, but we're not diehard Packer fans. But I mean, no one's tooted Aaron Rodgers' horn more than I have. I mean, I still think he's one of the 3 or 4 best players in the NFL, but
he's scared.
It's almost like someone's impersonating him the last few games. Like, it's not Aaron Rodgers. He's got happy feet. He just looks, even when they show him on the sideline, he looks frustrated. I don't know if it's the play calling or if it's the results. The
line in front of him hasn't exactly been pristine.
He threw the iPad last weekend or the iPad last weekend, and it just.
I think it's a Microsoft tablet.
Okay, well, he's frustrated. Whatever he was throwing, he wasn't happy with it, and the fact that they had a chance to win that game after playing just terribly.
And then you kick like the worst field goal in the history of the league.
Mason Crosby just mishit it. I mean, I don't think there's anything else to say. He just hit a bad kick, and I mean, he's been solid. I mean, I'm not going to knock Mason Crosby. I mean, that guy wasn't going to be on the team a couple of years ago. They were ready to throw him out of town, and he's been rock solid. But the offense continues to just struggle. Eddie Lacy's basically been benched, and Starks had 40 yards rushing.
I mean, that line just didn't really have any
push
anywhere.
The line is right now is a sieve, and defensively, they didn't play bad against the Lions, but when they needed the stop, they couldn't get it. The Lions went down and scored and missed tackles, and it's a team in disarray right now, and I don't understand why.
Doesn't really make any sense, does it?
It doesn't. And
especially because it's all come off of a bye week. You came off a bye, and now you've lost 3 straight. That's like the opposite of what's supposed to happen.
And the fact that they're not in first place is shocking. I mean, Minnesota's 7-2, and now they have to go to Minneapolis this weekend and play a Vikings team that's only getting better. I mean, Adrian Peterson's kind of back to being where he is. Their defense
played well. Diggs has been a great receiver.
Under Zimmer's been good. So this is a tough task for the Packers on Sunday. And if the Detroit game was a game they had to have, this is a game they must have.
Well, I think maybe they just got caught thinking the same thing we did. Where I was just like, well, we'll just talk about the Vikings game because that's the next one because they're obviously going to beat the Lions at home coming off 2 straight losses. And then lo and behold, not so fast.
They laid an egg. It just was, like you said, it was painful to watch. It was like watching
bad football. I mean,
it was like watching the Badgers play Western Illinois in basketball. I mean, it's 2 hours of my life I'm never going to get back.
See, I didn't have to witness that because I was watching Lake Geneva Badger play football. But
awful.
I mean, it was a bad. I guess we could just say it was a bad week for Wisconsin sports.
It was.
Good grief.
And luckily for the Badgers and Bo Ryan, they bounced back Sunday against Siena, a game you were at. And I guess your take on what Wisconsin fans can expect from that team this year.
I guess it really just finally hit me. You can read and you can talk about all the pieces that are gone from last year, but you don't really realize it until all these guys start checking in. And I'm just like, Dad,
who's this guy?
Who's this guy? I don't. What? Oh, who's that? Who's that? And it was a 2-hour learning experience, especially because they went deep on the bench. So I got to see everybody on the roster, and I was like, okay, that kid looks like he's in middle school, but
and he's probably not going to play once the conference season starts.
But it was just a kind of an eye opener just to realize just how many people they lost and how much they're relying on guys that I've never, outside of just reading about recruiting and things like that, you've just never even heard of before.
Well, and I think the one thing that that kind of stands out after 2 games is, we knew what we had with Hayes and Koenig, and I don't think much has changed after 2 games. But I think if you want to take something positive, I think Khalil Iverson and Charlie Thomas both are probably going to be good fits for that program. It looks like both of them are capable of logging a lot of minutes as freshmen, and that's something Bo doesn't give out easily.
I hadn't really read a whole lot about Charlie Thomas much at all. I mean,
right?
Was he?
He was maybe a 3-star recruit out of Maryland.
I thought he looked really good.
I mean, a big kid, and Iverson's got some. He's got some athleticism. He may be the most athletic guy in that team.
And we'll kind of just see what we get. Ethan Happ's been bothered by foul trouble.
Yep.
I don't think we've really gotten a chance to see exactly what he's going to be. But
you
have to figure out a way to play through that.
You do.
And not foul people all the time. Showalter, I don't know yet if it's a guy that we're going to be able to rely on.
I still think he's better coming off the bench, but obviously Bo feels like right now his experience and leadership is better served as a starting.
He did have that sick dunk at the end of the first half. Yeah. He just came in for the.
He's got some hops.
Yeah,
he does have some hops.
Kind of ridiculous.
Yeah, it really is. But you got to get more than that. I mean, a one play a night highlight is we need more than that out of Showalter, and obviously Vito Brown is got to find some consistency, and I think Bo said it best. He says some nights we're going to look like Wisconsin should look, and other nights. We've got guys wearing Wisconsin uniforms that are impersonating somebody because they're not who I thought they would be.
I guess my takeaway from the first week is this group's even with a blowout. I don't know what you read out of a blowout of Siena, but this group's going to have to come along pretty quick if they're going to really compete against a Georgetown or a Duke or a Syracuse. Obviously, I guess this seems like an understatement considering they lost to some team called the Leathernecks, but. If you're not going to win that game, then you're probably not ready for these big boys, and they're coming pretty fast.
And I think Nigel Hayes said it best. He said, a loss is never good, but in this case, meaning the Western Illinois game, I think we learned that if we'd have won that game, nobody would have talked about how poorly we played defensively. They'd have just said, "Oh, they won, and let's move on." He says, "Now we can address the fact that not only did we play poorly defensively, but it cost us. We lost a game. I mean, there were times where." Western Illinois whoever had the ball just went right down the lane.
And Siena did that sometimes too. So I don't think
the parting of the Red Sea,
but...
and they just went and scored easily at the basket. And I mean, let's face it, Western Illinois and Siena are nowhere near what they're going to see size-wise out of the Big Ten and Michigan State and Indiana and Ohio State and Michigan and those other teams where Wisconsin's lack of size. There's ways that you can exploit that, and I think we saw that a little bit against Western Illinois.
Luckily, the Bucks beat the Cavs, so that gave the Wisconsin fans
double overtime
around the state something to at least hang their hat on over the weekend. This weekend, we've got the Badgers are playing Northwestern in football.
Big game.
Obviously, the Packers and Vikings is big. It's deer hunting weekend. I mean, this is a this is gonna be a fun little weekend for Wisconsin sports fans everywhere. And then we'll head into Thanksgiving, and we'll come back and figure out exactly where everything stands. Then
good luck to the Jets, who swept their first series up in Alaska over Fairbanks, and now they get to go to beautiful
Kenai River,
which
that's a big sweep up there on the road.
Not sure I could find Kenai River on a map. If you
Taylor Fernandez was the divisional player of the week.
Okay, all right. Well, that's anytime you knock off the first place team, that's good. So kudos to the Jets, and I'm sure they're going to be watching us when this comes out tomorrow because there's not much else to do in Kenai River, Alaska.
I don't know, unless they found some sort of cruise where they could go check out polar bears
and whatever they might be doing. Just giving you heck.
Probably
Joe.
all business there.
Yep.
Got to try to come home with 8 points. That would be something else.
That would be something.
But yeah, we'll be back. Enjoy Thanksgiving. Enjoy the next couple weeks of sports, and we'll see you in a couple of weeks.
Take care, everybody.
And you can let us know what you think of the show.
Yes, please do.
By leaving us a review on YouTube or iTunes, or emailing us at sportshack@xtra.com, or you can harass us on Twitter,
Facebook, whatever you'd like to do.
There's a lot of different ways you can go about it.
Any social media we'll accept.
Thanks to our producer, Andrew Ryder, and the music from Kevin MacLeod. And now we will see you in a couple weeks.